Hello YouTube, Robin Hood Bricks here, and today I'm going to be doing some structural work on the main level of my 20,000 bricks under the sea cabinet that will hopefully tie all of the different elements that we've done so far together. So let's get started. Well, I've got a decent amount of time to play with today, so I'm going to put it to good use and do something that's been annoying me for a while, and that's the fact that all of these little builds are isolated, not joined together, and all just floating on the glass shelves of my cabinet. So what I want to do is build essentially the ground level that will be sitting on this glass shelf that everything will be attached to. So we've got in the corner, probably already in its final position, my secret hidden lab with the attached sea tunnel, so that'll be sticking out in this direction as per usual. I've actually removed some of the base plates that were around here just because I'm going to be redoing those. What else have we got? We've got the little scenes at the front. We can re-establish those. The submarine, which is the third one from the big base that would sort of dock here, that can go anywhere, so I'm not really worried about that, or the rocks it's propped up on temporarily. Then we've got our lovely shark display with our circling sharks around the diver who looks suitably terrified, and that's going to go roughly here where I've got it in the middle of the cabinet as a nice distraction, which still leaves us loads of areas to do all sorts of plant life and scenes and all the rest of it. And then we've got our massive multi-leveled base, which I think I'm going to extend even further, but anyway, that's for a later video, and that is currently propped up on burp pieces, which isn't a good look. So I want this to be quite multi-leveled in a way, but not too much. I don't want it going up huge amounts and down like it's a really rocky surface because, well, it'll take too much bricks and, well, be a bit distracting, I think. So my general idea is to have it low at this end and then much higher at this end, probably only sort of 1 or 2 brick height, maybe 3 in the absolute far corner. So it's like a gentle slope down and it doesn't conceal too much of our lovely backdrop, and then it fades away to nothing here, literally nothing. I'm going to have kind of a jagged line here, so there's a section that's a cutaway that is a real transition into the level below where we've got a castle. No, it'll really be the Silent Mary wreck and loads of funky corals. So that will enable us to have a bit of bare glass, which will represent just the abyss kind of dropping off. And also we'll be able to do some transitions on that piece of glass like we have with our whale and all of our ship holes, of course, and this shark cage on the level above. So I'll have to think about more ideas for that in due course. Yeah, so we'll have the cutaway on this end, very jagged, and then it will just slowly ramp up towards the corner, which will give us a kind of a cross section along here, which I'm going to do in dark tan, and then the level on the top will be this normal tan sort of sand colour. And then at some point, probably on another day, we'll just integrate this build and get rid of all these ugly mechanical bricks and have that hidden completely within a rock surface. And then, well, it will probably look very similar to what it does now, but everything will be in its final resting place. And then also as part of a further video, I think I'll be doing all of this much more intricate, much more interesting, with loads of plants and caves and fish and all the rest of it all over it. And maybe even add some more into what looks here a bit empty, I think. And the hope is that that rock face will kind of meld in with the backdrop there. You can see we've got a kind of mountain there, underwater mountain, in the backdrop. So that slope's supposed to build into it. So I don't want to cover up this little sort of arch here because that's very beautiful. And I don't want to hide that hole there. And this bit will be relatively low, so we won't obstruct any of that, or the wonderful wreck, of course, in the distance. This place is clearly a Bermuda Triangle if we've got the Silent Mary wreck down there, another one there, and, well, probably more in due course. Cool. So where shall I start? I might start easily with the bit here. So if I just get some wedge plates and play around with making this a jagged edge. I'll probably have to take out the tunnel temporarily, and we can see how that looks, and then we can move to the building desk and start to build a great big sort of biscuit of bricks that's going to sort of slide in as the new base for this level. Cool. Righty dokie, that's looking really good already. It's really interesting when you have a plan in your head and then you start actually building it in bricks. It always is kind of surprising, really, to see it in real life. Anyway, we've got rid of a lot of the stuff that was over here. I removed the C-tunnel briefly just to get in this quite intricate with curved plates and wedge plates sort of edge to make it very rough and natural looking, so it goes up a little bit before going back down again. And there is our new seahorse that we got on this week's haul, just in a temporary holding place. So I think that's looking really quite dramatic now, and you'd be able to see right down to the coral layer beneath, of course, through that bit of empty shelf. And it's a bit more perilous as well that our diver who's working on hatch 442 is actually over that abyss, but he does have his flippers on, so he should be able to get back into position should he let go. But yeah, you wouldn't want to necessarily fall all the way down. And when it comes to the layer below, I don't think I'm going to kind of marry them up. I'm not going to have all the bricks coming right up to each of these edges. I think this is kind of a representation of different levels of kind of an underwater sea slope. I've just done a little sort of set of steps here to show you what I mean. Essentially, I think this level is here where we're building today, and rather than being directly underneath this level, the next level is kind of further down a deep sea slope and slightly in front of it, and then the very bottom level is much deeper still, but also kind of in front of that. So it's just to give the idea that as a diver you'd kind of drift down this long slope all the way into the depths. So each one wouldn't be necessarily needing to be married up with the one below it. Cool, so I like that edge. I think that looks pretty good. I'm really excited about designing something to be going across this boundary here. I think I might do some more cutaways along over in this direction as well, just to make it look like we've got a couple of transition points. As I say, this bit's going to be relatively flat, so I'm going to leave the next bit completely undone for now, and I'm going to focus on the far end, because that is going to be the bit that's going to be higher up, the sort of thickest bit of biscuit, so to speak, and it's got to marry up with these difficult corners, and I want to keep these shelf attachments in place and so kind of build around them, so it's nice and strong still. So I think what I'm going to do now is kind of slide very carefully all of this over to here, because it's very perilously balanced at the moment, to give me some working space, and then I'm going to work from that corner out, and then maybe we'll put that on top of what I produce. But yeah, that looks really good actually, quite interesting. I think you'll agree. Well, it may not look like much at the moment, but this is the first section of my biscuit, as I'm calling it, the section that's going to be going end on in the cabinet into this space here. And I've spent a bit of time making it look neat, even though there is a unit there that, will stop us seeing it side on, just in case one day that isn't there. I don't want it to look, absolutely awful, made of rainbow bricks. But essentially what I've got is tan plates on the bottom, just in case you ever sort of look up from a lower level and see it. I want it to look neat, but with dark tan ones on the edge, so our edge profile with the dark tan bricks is completely like dark sand. And then on top of that, we've got the sunlight hit sand, so that's a lighter colour of this tan. And I'm using other coloured bricks where I'm going to be covering it up with more plates in due course. So that is our side profile looking nice. I'm still using all of these damaged bricks, which were donated very generously to the channel for all of this sort of structural work that will be hidden. So yeah, that is our first section. Now the back corner was very easy to do because I'd already worked out what profile fitted perfectly in that corner when I did the science lab. So that's fine there. For the front corner, I've had to do a different cutaway, sort of try it, pull it away, try it again, which isn't too complicated, but it takes a while to work out because it's got to fit with this bit of hardware here that's holding the shelf in place. I want to keep that, and I don't think it'll be too noticeable when it's in place. So that means we can just slide this in. So here, and you see how close that is. It's actually really firmly held. It's an absolute perfect width for Lego stud dimensions. And yeah, that hardware is completely concealed. We can't see anything bad in that corner at all. So I can continue this dark tan level out here, and I've started it, as you can see, as actually 3 brick height with a plate on top, and that's going to whittle down to nothing by the time we get to the other end of the cabinet. and all of this nonsense will be completely hidden. And I think that'll be really good. So I'm making it removable at the moment, so I can basically slide this out, work on it on the desk, and then slide it back in when I'm done. And I'll need to keep doing that when I'm doing the rock faces up here and so on. I can't really build it in a cabinet, that'd be a nightmare. But eventually it's going to have to stay in here when we add the base back, which I've kind of just slid over in this direction in due course. Cool, so next section please. All right, well, a few more plates on and it's already looking much more lifelike and interesting. Curved plates, wedge plates and plates, looking very good indeed, especially with that sideways blue lighting casting shadows everywhere. It looks really interesting, I think you'll agree. So that has covered up a lot of the rainbow bricks that we didn't want. But the next thing that I don't think we want is having this big band of dark tan bricks that's going to be otherwise across the entire length of the front of the cabinet. That just seems like a real wasted opportunity to me. And you know, I like maximizing density of all my scenes, so I think we need some fun things buried into that front sort of cross section where the guillotine of the cabinet has come down on two sides that show us what's buried underneath the surface of the sands. So given that this is a very sort of Bermuda Triangle-y type area with lots of shipwrecks and exploration and all the rest of it, I thought the most obvious thing would be the skeleton of a diver from many moons ago. So basically I've built this setup, doing it kind of on the side. Now he isn't completely buried on the cross section where the guillotine came down. His arms are sticking out a little bit and his mask as well, but you get the idea and it's kind of fun. So I think I'll have that buried into the side because it wouldn't have really worked going in that way, or we haven't got room to do him vertically. So I think that will basically go in somewhere like that, and I can push that down then. Oh, a bit anyway, and then we've got some really interesting scenes of what has been buried over the ages in the sands. So yeah, I think that's really good. He's kind of encapsulated, or at least he will be when this is pushed down properly. And then just to make this corner even higher and more interesting, I do want to add some rocks. So this also will be cut off by the guillotine on that straight edge and that straight edge. And essentially it's just one of these corner burps with the back filled in, so you can't see the ugly side of it. And I've put a few starting slopes on the rest. I'll probably dress this a lot more in due course, but that can go on here. I won't push that down too hard either. Last thing I want to do is smash my shelves. That would be a disaster. But you get the idea of having this multi-textured level. Just move that light up so I can slide it in. And then, oh, it's a really satisfying push that into the corner. Yeah, looking good. So you can't see the shelf attachment. You can see the back of that rock cut in half by the guillotine, the slope down from it, and something interesting buried in the sands below. Yeah, that is good level of detail. Right, I need to continue this all out and think about what I'm going to do for my second under sand scene. Good. Well, for our second buried scene, rather unsurprisingly, it's buried treasure. I bet you were all shouting at your screen because it's so obvious. So what I've used here is one of these chests, but I've used the flat top just because it looks a bit better when it's buried like this. Also in gold, it stands out a lot better against the dark tan than a brown one would, which also might have rotted away over the years. And I've put next to it a gem just built into the walls. We only see a little flash of that when everything's in, and some gold coins with the crowns on. One there and one there. They came with the Series 22 Troubadour, of course, who's come to supervise the build. Very nice to see him in his underwater gear. So I can build this in now with a few more bricks like that. So it'll be really buried and like that. So it's blended into the scene above. And that's what we'll be able to see. Completely buried in there, but enough gap just to see the coins and so on. Looking good. And now you can start to see this line I've got of the tan. I'm not overlapping it ever any more than one stud. So it does look a bit blocky, a bit Minecrafty, but essentially I think that looks all right. I've got the end on palisade bricks every now and then just to give a bit of texture where there's smaller holes, or maybe where some creature lives or something like that. But otherwise, I think that looks pretty good. So yeah, I think I've got space for one more over about here. when it goes a bit lower, but after that it's going to be so low as to go to nothing. So yeah, one more fun scene, and I think we need some sort of life under there, don't we? Some sort of creature or other. Back in position, and our third scene is here, and it uses the little tiny hermit crab. Oh, isn't he sweet? So he came with the Series 21 Shipwreck Survivor minifigure. I've kind of made him a little burrow. You see, there's the entrance there. That actually links up with the top there. I'm not sure if hermit crabs actually live down burrows, but I mean, they certainly hide. So maybe another creature made the burrow and he decided to hide inside it. But I just love his cute little face. I think you'll agree. So essentially having him on that platform and attention being brought to him is a very good idea if you ask me. So yes, I really like that. So we can see the tan level on the top, continuing sort of one deep with that little break for the hole there, and then whittling down to almost nothing. And I think that is where I'm going to have this second cutaway, just a sort of small one here on the bottom that will link up then with that. And it occurred to me that I hadn't actually tested the doors fully closed at this point. So I did just try that, and they do close. Thank goodness for that, because if they didn't, well, I'd have to do a lot of rework, and that would have been a disaster. Anyway, right, so now I've started to incorporate a few rocks, and I'm kind of burying them in this slope down, because we need quite a sharp slope from this high area that allows us to fit these scenes in to get back down to zero, i.e. to the glass level for another cutaway hole. So we've got a bit of a sort of bank made up of all these wedge and curved plates. So that looks pretty good. So I'm building the rocks into that so they don't look too obviously like burps. And in due course, I will obviously add loads more slopes all around these, so you won't necessarily be able to tell that they are just single pieces, because it'll look a lot better like that. But one thing I need your help with is a decision that probably will extend to the rest of the cabinet as well. And it's that some of these burps have actually got stickers on them from all the sort of 90s divers sets. And although this one has definitely got too many, I can still move them using my patented hot tea technique. And the question is, do I want to move them and keep them and use them as part of the fish in my cabinet? Or should I just sort of stick to the real life 3D fish and plants and life and all the rest of it? Because I'm not sure the two will go together that well. So yeah, to include those or not. So if I just flip these two around for a moment, you can get a sort of rough idea of how it might look if these were like that back to back. Does that look awful, or does that look quite interesting? I mean, it's quite Lego-y, which is cool, but yeah, I'm not entirely convinced myself. But it'd probably be a maximum of one a rock, so maybe you just have, say, that one with some plant life in front of it that sort of conceals it a little bit. So it wouldn't necessarily be that intense. But yeah, do tell me what you think I should do. Cool, right, so I think that's finished our cutaway actually, since it's come down to zero here. I think it's pretty interesting with our skeleton, diver, our treasure, I mean that's obligatory, isn't it? And our little fella here, he almost needs a name, doesn't he? And then we've got really interesting multiple levels and stuff here. Obviously I need to fill in the back next. I'll probably have to move this entire base. I've already moved half of it down to a lower level temporarily. And then we can try and maybe marry up the two bits together today. And then another time we can start building up the proper rock face that all that base is going to be sat on. Oh, yeah, a lot of work for what is essentially a big flat biscuit. Well, today's build has been up and down out of my chair all day, pulling this setup in and out of this cabinet all day just to get it right. But I think we're getting there. It's all in now. I've removed the big station and put it down below. In fact, when I did that, half of it fell off the other half and basically smashed all over my floor. I'll have to repair that later. Bit of a nightmare. I'm trying not to think about that. Yeah, I've got plans, so I'll be able to put that back together fine. And I just thought I'd measure the distance of getting these two halves to join. And this is quite a good sign. I've got sort of a fraction of a stud left, so essentially I'll be able to lift out this side and work on it, put it back in, and it will marry up with the other, and now I'll just have to pull them a couple of millimeters together and join them up when the time comes. So I think that'll be good. So obviously I'll fill in all of this section here, and this bit is just the start of what will be that shark feature with the turner, probably right out here on the front, so it's easy to reach next to this hill. And that will go all the way through to here, where I'll transfer that whole mechanism into a position that's kind of halfway between our sea tunnel and our big base in the corner. So that'll be good. These are just here temporarily. I'm going to add sort of more details to sort of break up these large flat areas, and some of them are going to have the feet, of course, for the big station on, sort of all over the place. So that'll be good as well. I've started adding a few rocks here because I wanted just to finish this slope. So this slope will basically go to here, where that whole mechanism area will start. So there'll be a great big section of rocks here, covered in all the detail that we know and love. So that will be a kind of rocky outcrop that breaks up the slope at the front and at the back. And then we've got more rocks here. I just thought I'd use my one tan coloured burp here, so yeah, that's incorporated. That's there. That hole is just to take one of these small rock panels, because I don't like that flat bit at the bottom too much. So I thought if I recessed it, since I've got a recessed area, I could hide that and it will just be the interesting pointed bit. So yeah, that's quite good. And then you might have noticed that I've got two dark templates here. I've got one there and one there. And what they're going to be is representing shadow of the inside of some caves. So essentially I'm going to have a small cave here, perhaps with some swamp people in it, mermen, and then a bigger cave sort of entrance there, and they'll be completely concealed by the great big base that's going to be in front of all this, of course. So you'll really have to sort of, you know, peer around at different angles to try and look at what's going on. So yeah, and I'm thinking that bit that's unfinished at the back probably won't need to be filled in. It'll just be a waste of plates when we've got all of the rock face going up and hiding pretty much all of that area. So yeah, there we go. Oh, right, so yeah, I think I've got one last thing to do, is probably just fill in this so it looks complete, and then we'll do the transfer of that and the rock face another time. But yeah, it's looking pretty good, and yeah, I really like that side profile. It's quite a subtle sort of drop off, but it would have been really boring if the whole area had just been flat plates like this. Oh, and I put in the tiger shark headpiece. Maybe it's just a placeholder, but maybe I'll keep it actually to represent a massive fish that has kind of half buried itself in the sand and is ready to attack with just two beady eyes above the surface level of the sand. So if a submarine's going by, maybe he'll think that's a can of tinned people to eat. So yeah, tell me if you like that there. Don't worry about the tiles and stuff, they won't be there for long. And a bit more texturing towards the back there. So yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. Yeah, I'm liking all these burp pieces. It's really starting to come alive, finally. Phew, tan section complete. Oh, I think that looks really good, actually. It looks quite textured, quite multi-leveled with that profile along the bottom right there. Finished that second cutaway, just a very small one there. May not have a magnet held thing there, but at least it gives the idea that there is that connection between the two levels. The shark thing here, device, whatever you want to call that, you can see is a duplicate of what I've put here. That essentially will be there. I've just got to meld the two together at a later date. But yeah, looking good. And it's really blending in with the backdrop along that back line there with all of that sand. And that was the idea, that the sand would blend into that and the rock would blend into that. Ha! It's almost like I planned it. Anyway, yeah, I'm really looking forward now to doing this rock face. I don't usually look forward to rock faces because they take ages. I mean, that one took a whole video and that was pretty much a day session like this. So this one's going to be about 4 times the size and has got rock caves and all the rest of it in it. And another thing I want to do on that is incorporate this great big sort of skull rock piece. So that was donated to the channel. Actually, I got 2. I bought one and one was donated to the channel. And I figure I'm going to incorporate that maybe at an angle like that, so that it's sort of almost like a warning, but from who? I don't know. A warning to stay out of this area because you're not safe. So yeah, I definitely want to incorporate that, and I think having it at that 90-degree, or rather 45-degree angle will be quite interesting, and with it at that slightly lighter grey it should really pop. So yeah, I'm liking that. It'll need to be maybe a bit higher so it's not concealed by these sharks that are the same colour. But you get the idea. This cabinet is really coming alive. I'm loving it. Cool. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. It is appreciated. Do remember to like, comment and subscribe for more awesome LEGO videos. And if you value this channel, there are many ways in which you can support it. Do check out the links in the description below. And if you want to send something to the channel, like the giant skull piece was sent, then you can to the usual address. And next time on Robin Hood Bricks, I've been requested to do some fairground updates because it's been an unfeasibly long time since I did anything there. And I think they're right. I think I do need to do a fairground update. So that is what I'm going to endeavour to do for Monday. A fairground for Monday. Yeah, well, whatever. Yeah, if not, we'll do something easier. But whatever we get up to, I'm sure it'll be great fun. So until then, see you! Yeah, that looks nice. It'll look even better when we've got rid of those Technic bricks in the middle.